have the pleasure of meeting Paul Radice, who's a good friend and colleague of Dr. Doug Mader's in Florida. Paul, you do amazing things at Angels Hatchery. You hatch angels, don't you? Angels of many different kinds. How long have you been breeding fish, tortoises, and maybe other critters? How long have you been doing that?
I actually started when I was 8 years old, but as a business, we opened the
Wow.
business. Yeah,
Wow, I like that.
it's been a while. Yeah, so if you want to count that, it's been about 70 years. But
I
as a
want to count it. I think we count everything. It's like people who say, how long have you been married? No, how long have you been together? So you and the hatching and the breeding of fish and tortoises have been around since you were 8. So a good long time.
good
But
long time, yes.
yeah.
As far as the business, we started the business in 1972, producing African cichlids, koi, angelfish, which is where the name came from, Angels
Ah.
Hatchery, and also we've been producing different types of tortoises since around 1975.
So you've been at that a fair amount of time too. You're
Yes.
no Johnny come lately to the idea that you can bring beautiful fish into people's lives by growing them right here in the United States instead of I don't know where else they might have come from before. What are African cichlids and why are there 45 kinds of them?
Okay, we produce 45 varieties. There are actually thousands of varieties,
Oh,
and they originate from the Great Lakes of Africa, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Malawi, and Lake Victoria. And we produce fish from all three some from all three lakes. We specialize in the harder to produce fish, the ones that other people are not doing. So we're considered the top breeder in the world of several
wow.
varieties.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
what would the 8-year-old you have thought of that when you were just messing around and loving fish? To be so famous in the fish world, not only that you're the only ones doing something difficult to do and achieving it, but 3 different lakes in Africa. I'm an idiot. I know nothing about geography. I don't know how many lakes there are in Africa, but how did you know that those were the lakes that had the coolest, rarest of the cichlid fish?
In the beginning, 1972, when we first went into business, I originally started producing angelfish and koi for the first year, and then quickly realized that there were better markets in the way of African fish, which were brand new at the time. They just started coming in the country from Lake Tanganyika, the Tanzania coast, and also Lake Malawi and Lake Victoria. And little by little, every month, a few new fish would be introduced into the United States from these three major lakes. And so what I would do is I would buy the first brought into the country of many varieties, and from there, at one time we were producing over 200 varieties of African fish, but the
Oh,
marketability led us to these 45 most colorful and most rare. That's where we're at today, and that's where we've been for many decades.
all right. So then the question becomes, how do they get those few fish, those, I'm going to call it a handful of fish from these 3 African lakes to the United States? And is there an auction? Are they in egg form? Are they already grown fish? And what kind of, was it any of it clandestine? Was it illegal or legal, or did no one really care that African fish were coming in? How
No,
did
there,
it
there
work?
was.
How did it work? It must have been a very James Bondian kind of thing. That's my fantasy.
Yeah, no, it was actually all very legal. The fish were collected from these three Great Lakes in Africa and brought into holding facilities on the borders of these lakes. From there, they were gathered and brought to the airports in Africa and shipped to Miami. It was a very
Straightforward.
yeah, it was a very straightforward process, and these were adult fish, so
Okay.
they were fish that were in full color. So you had a real good
Oh,
idea of what you were going to be producing, because when they're babies, generally they look a lot different than when they're fully grown.
not at all enticing. You wouldn't put
Exactly.
out
Yeah,
a,
most of them
yeah.
not at all enticing. Exactly.
So you are there with in Miami. Is there like an auction? We know there's auction for big tuna, right? By the great sushi chefs of Japan and other countries. When back then it was obviously probably not as competitive a market, and you were a much younger man, but you knew what you knew and you knew what you wanted. How many people were there in Miami at, was it an auction?
No.
How did you win the good ones?
Okay. Here's what we did. In the beginning, I would buy whatever was brand new in the way of whatever was recently found in Africa, and I would bring in boxes of them in order to decide if I was going to try to produce them or
Right.
just move them along to somebody else. And there were no other fish farms at the time in the United States that were set up primarily for African cichlids. As a matter of fact, there were none. So I
Nice.
was there right in the beginning, unknowingly, really, that I would be in competition only with myself.
I
So
love it. That's
yeah, that was
crazy,
just
right?
luck, pure happenstance.
It was what you loved. You saw these
Oh yeah,
fish and it must have just rung a bell for you.
oh yeah.
Obviously,
Every
when,
time
yeah.
the bells were ringing.
Oh, that's so neat. And
Yeah,
that was your little 8-year-old self inside you just saying, wow, I would imagine. Just
yeah.
seeing
He's
these,
still there. Yeah,
that's great. It's what keeps you young and fresh and doing it and sharing, I'm sure, the enthusiasm of the people who buy fish from you. So you bring home this box. Well, it must have been a plastic box because otherwise they had to be in water. Was it a special kind of water? Are
yeah.
African cichlids hard to manage?
And the shipping of them had already been figured out. They were put in plastic bags, 1/3 water, 2/3 pure gas oxygen, pure
Wow.
oxygen, and they're good if packed like that, generally for 48 hours, and
Okay.
depending on how many are packed, and sometimes for much longer. So I would bring them in, and always with very little to no mortalities coming in. So I
Nice.
realized, yeah, they were strong fish also. And that was another reason that I got real into the African fish. They're just like koi as far as they're very long lived, they're strong, and they're basically somewhat disease resistant,
No.
and they're tough fish.
Tough
And they're
fish. I
extremely
love that.
colorful. Their colors actually compete with the color of marine fish, saltwater fish.
No
They're,
kidding.
yep, they're the only group of fish that really has that going. So
So
there were
that's
the big advantages.
big, very desirable. So let's say I live in Iowa and I'm a fish lover, fish collector, and I want one of those 45 African cichlids. Do you ship it to me the same way they came from Africa to Miami and then from Miami to
Yes,
to your
we
facility?
certainly can. We
Do you
ship
do
fish.
you do that?
Yeah, we right now we're just shipping UPS, but yes, we do that. We'll ship fish next day UPS, and
Right?
that's not a problem. At the in the very beginning, I was selling to only the wholesale markets. These were major distributors in every major city. There
Ah,
was one or two major wholesalers who would import fish. They would call them jobbers. They would
okay.
import fish, and their job was to get them into pet shops and then to get them out to the public. And that's how, in the beginning, back in the 70s, I basically sold 99% of our fish by sending them to wholesalers who would then sell them to pet shops all over the country, and they would spread out very rapidly.
That makes more sense and is logical, but has the landscape changed a lot as so many brick and mortar pet stores have closed?
Extremely, yeah. It's been a constant change by the onset of the superstores who that
Mhm.
put a lot of the ma and pop shops out of
Yes.
business.
Yes.
They actually, unfortunately, brought down the interest in the market because the education factor was not there. There were not as many people being shown and educated on the different varieties of fish that were available, as well as even being told about the nature of the fish. So the mom and pop owners, they were really into their livestock, whether it was
Yes.
fish or birds or cats or
Yes.
dogs or
Yes.
snakes or tortoises or whatever.
Yes.
Anyway, whereas the superstores, their main focus has always been on selling consumable products,
That's right.
foods, and equipment and chemicals and so
Yeah.
forth. And
Of the end user, right? The education of that person who's going to own that long-lived, tough, gorgeous fish is lacking because you're missing the middleman. So
that's
right
exactly
now,
correct. That's
you have to
exactly correct.
you have to depend on well-seasoned, self-educated, experienced fish owners who know that what you have is rare and some of them the only ones available on the planet. But does that
That's
mean
correct.
that you have a thriving business in this precious little niche? Or do you want more people to understand the beauty and variety of fish that they can live with?
Both. We've had a thriving business since the very beginning. We've never had a loss year. We pay taxes every year, basically. So we've had a very
That's
successful
amazing.
business, and it's only increased and increased.
Good,
And then the
good.
second part of your question is, yeah, I would like for more people to have a better education and sense of what is available and how to do it and why and what's available and what goes with what and any problems they may have, how to solve them. Fish problems are solvable. Some people think, oh, my fish is sick. You flush it down the toilet. That's not what you do. You fix it just like you would a dog, a
Nice,
cat, a bird, a
nice,
tortoise, anything.
nice.
They're extremely fixable. If
That's really good to know.
Yes, yes, that's important. It's extremely important. You don't have to lose your fish, but you have to pay attention to them because fish will let you know when they're not feeling well. And people who are really interested in their fish, they know when there's something different in the behavior of their fish. And that's the first sign that they need to take some type of curative or preventative action.
Something might be wrong with that individual fish or with the environment,
Exactly.
something with the water, the light, the temperature, any of those things that are
All of any
variables
of that.
that you
Yes, correct.
have to stay on top of. So, what are some of those early warning signs from a fish? If people like Dr. Doug Mader, who, like you, had fish from boyhood and all through his life has had fish, he would come in the front door. He often talks about it, and they would rush to the side of the tank to say hi. They knew each other. They really knew each other. I imagine that if one of them didn't come up to feed or another one was hiding down in the greenery,
Yes.
that wasn't his norm. That in itself, any change in an animal is itself a tip off, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. That's one of your first symptoms or signs when a fish separates himself. There are several other signs. If a fish tends to scratch like its side on the bottom of the tank and then right
Wow.
itself, that's a sign of a single cell parasite. And there are a few down here in South Florida that are prevalent, but all of them can be handled within a few days if you watch out for the signs. That another sign is a fish coming up to the top of the water and seemingly gasping for air. That's because gill parasites are coating its gills and it can't get enough oxygen through its
Ooh,
mouth and then through its gills to breathe. That's another sign of the same problem. A third sign is the fish breaching out of the water, jumping straight up out of the water to try
wow.
to rid itself of microparasites and macroparasites. And that's a third sign of basically the same problem. And there's basically only a few things that go wrong. One is parasitic, bacterial, viral, which all you can do there is improve conditions,
Okay.
and the others are very treatable and very simply treatable. There are great products on the market put out by some of the biggest manufacturers in the world who have keyed in on the protection and the curative action of diseased fish. Anyway, but if you're the most important thing is to recognize that
Yes.
something is not normal. And to
Yes.
do that, you have to know what normal is. So you have to
Right.
pay attention to your fish.
Yeah. You have to have the fish because you really want some sort of interaction with them. It's a
Yeah,
bond through
exactly.
glass and water, but it's a bond nonetheless. And getting to know normal, just like any pet parent, as they call them, you know better than anybody when that fish isn't his usual self because you are paying attention, because it's why you have the fish. It's
That's
not like
right.
wallpaper, it's a living, feeling creature of, I don't know, swimming
That's
beauty,
right.
you might call it. So I think it's important that our sponsor, ZoomEd, makes so many products for aquarium, whether it's the lights, whether it's the
Yes,
filters, the container itself, and a lot of the cute and fun and probably functional stuff that goes in the bottom of the tank. So
exactly.
I just want to give a shout out to you and your wife at
Thank you
Angels
very much.
Hatchery for doing this work, for doing it with so much intention and passion, devotion and joy for so long. And anyone can remember the name Angels Hatchery. So if you think I'm not ready to do saltwater fish. They're really fabulous looking, but it's a lot higher maintenance, demands a lot more of me as a fish owner. But I could get an African cichlid or 45 of them from Angels Hatchery, and you'd always have Judith and Paul on the phone if things
Sure.
got wonky, or write to me, Tracy at Tracy Hotchner Pets, and Dr. Dud. Dr. Doug will help jump in and help. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much, Paul. And I know you're going to be back and we're going to talk again about tortoises, a whole nother creature. Thank you
Sure.
for being there for all the fish lovers and for the fish and keeping them all so healthy for so many decades. Thank you.
I thank you, Trish. I thank all your viewers too.